We have just that. We've got a powerhouse in the building who's a doctor, entrepreneur, author, nonprofit founder, wife and mom, and someone who's changing how Vegas is looking at health. So we're going to get into that today. So let's welcome to the circle founder and CEO of Inspire Primary Care. We've got Jade Norris, better known as Dr. Jade.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Met you and your husband at a mutual friends event, I think it was in December,
Yes.
with Shane Jasmine and Charles.
Yes,
Sitting
shout
at
out
the
to
same
them.
table. Yes, so shout out to them. They put us together. But let's jump right in, man. So Inspire Primary Care, modern membership medical practice. But I want to hear from your perspective for our listeners. So what is Inspire? And what is it all about as far as the membership side?
Yes, well, I was one of those weird kids at 4 years old. That's when I knew God showed me I was supposed to be a doctor. So I was one of those kids when you asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? It was, I want to be a doctor. And, back then people thought it was cute. They figure you'll change your mind, right?
Yep.
But I never deviated from that dream. And I grew up in Las Vegas. And so, I would see healthcare in our city, saw a lack of it, really. It was hard to access care. I didn't even know what primary care was growing up because when we were sick, we just go to the urgent care,
For real.
And then once I was like a young woman, it was like, I just use my OB-GYN. So there was never this whole primary care doctor. But the doctors that did take me under their wing on my journey, they all had private practices. So my OB-GYN, she let me shadow her. My pediatrician growing up, he had his own private practice. And so that was my lens as a child of I'm going to be a doctor and
That's
I'm going to
awesome.
have my own practice, right?
That's awesome.
Then in residency, I learned the business of medicine in our country. And that's when I learned, if you're an insurance-based doctor, you really just work for insurance companies. You really just do whatever they say do because otherwise they won't pay you.
Yeah.
And if they tell you you have to get in and out the room within 5 minutes and see people back to back as fast as possible to collect as many copays, and that primary care is now just meant to be a referral center so that you can send the people where they make the most money, which is surgeries, hospitalizations, or specialist office for procedures. Once I realized that, where I was like, wow, I've gone through 15 years of training just to push buttons and send people to the hospital or to the emergency room or to a specialist when I'm actually trained to do 90% of healthcare, but I don't have the time to do it. And I was blessed during my residency training to find out about a style of medicine called direct primary care, also known as DPC, or some people are more commonly know it as like concierge or membership style practices. But I met this whole community of doctors all across the country, thanks to, I was in training during COVID, so everything was virtual and the conferences were virtual. So I met this whole community of physicians. It was over like 2,000 at the time. Now we've doubled or tripled that now. But they were all opening membership-based direct primary care practices, and they were the happiest doctors I've seen. They were telling all these stories about transforming health, being a text message away for their patients, helping people reverse and prevent chronic disease, all the things that were the reasons I went into medicine. And then I met a niche community of doctors who did it straight from residency.
That's
and I
awesome.
said, if they can do it straight from residency, I can do it straight from residency. And so that is where Inspire Primary Care was born. The goal was always to come back to my hometown and serve my community with quality health care, but I just didn't know how I would do that in an insurance-based practice. And so direct primary care gave me that, and that's where Inspire Primary Care came from.
That's awesome.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic to hear. And I think, when I was younger, I feel like care was like that a lot
Yes.
more. Was there like a shift in time? When did that all, I think there was a time where I probably didn't go to the doctor for probably too many years. And then I went back, it was in this environment that was very awkward and abnormal for me because I'm going here talking and now I have to go see 3 different specialists for 3 different things. And,
Yes.
and I was like, this is a very, one, I don't have time to go do all that. I'd rather just you tell me what's going on. But also, was there a clear shift in that process, or like when did that happen?
Absolutely. If you think like back in the day, when you think of like old school medicine, right? That was like the doctor with the briefcase that would come to your house and check your temperature.
Literally smoke a cigarette while he's coming to see you.
Yeah, he was like the community doctor that everybody knew, and right? And he was easy to reach. And at that time back then, lots of doctors, especially primary care doctors, had their own practice. They called it just hanging your shingle, right? You graduate, you'd hang your shingle, and the community knew you and knew how to reach you. But what happened when I started training, when I was in med school, they started training us to say, you cannot open private practices. Private practice is dead. Corporations have bought it up. It's a monopoly now. All private practices have been bought out, and now everything is owned by insurance companies. The hospitals, the specialist offices, and all primary care private practices are now corporatized. The corporate medicine has taken over that. So I was trained to know that, like, look, when you're done with this, you sign a contract, you get a job, you work. You don't open private practice. That doesn't exist. So that's really what happened. Is it just
Just over time, just kind of ate it up.
Ate it up, and then figured out, okay, now how do we actually make money out of this? Oh, we make money out of people being sick. We make money out of people getting surgeries, being on dialysis, having heart attacks, needing procedures. Like, okay, if that's how we make money, then that's where we're going to put our focus.
And I'm even
let's shift them out of the prevention because we don't make money from that.
And I'm even seeing now where they don't even want to have that first interaction any longer. It's now just call me for telehealth, and then I'm going to prescribe you to these 3 different things so I can hit these people in that quota. Like I'm sure you mentioned, it's a lot faster through telehealth than it is through going in person.
Yeah, telehealth, insurance-based practices, most of them have canceled telehealth. A lot of telehealth was approved because of COVID, and they couldn't collect copays if people couldn't come inside and everything was shut down. But in the last few months, things have not been approved insurance-based. Basically, legislation has transitioned towards canceling that because they make more money if you come in, get a physical exam,
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe
it's a lot of box
a little bit
checking.
ago, so now it's shifted a little bit back.
It's trying to shift back, but there's a lot of tension there because people are now used to getting telehealth services.
Unreal.
Yeah.
This is very frustrating when you see that it's all insurance. I remember we had Andrew Cartwright on. I remember he was talking about how difficult the insurance make it so confusing for you to frustrate the system on purpose.
Absolutely. And there's only a few of them, right? And the thing about it is there's no transparency, so they don't have to tell you the true price of anything. People think medicine and primary care is expensive. It's so affordable. And direct primary care practices were able to get the wholesale rates of things and negotiate directly with the labs and the imaging to get the prices without the insurance inflation. So when you find out, x-rays are only $25 and I can walk in same day and get that, it's just a whole new light that we're shedding on people to be like, if you just don't use insurance for your 90% of healthcare of primary care, you're going to save so much money and you're going to have a direct relationship and get things done quickly. So it's really nice to just be able to provide healthcare the way it should be.
Is there any pressure from the insurance companies on this model? Because I think you are starting to see this become more and more prevalent. And I'm sure they're not liking the fact that they're getting taken out of that equation.
Not at all.
What's very interesting, it's like this David and Goliath type of analogy, right? Because if you're so small, they ignore you and they think it'll go away. But now that this movement has been going on 20 years and it's really building, especially in the last year, especially with the subsidy changes and all of the things legislation-wise, it's really exploded. TikTok, it's really been trending. Mark Cuban has been huge in pushing this movement and exposing this. So now that so many loud voices are talking about it and praising it and experiencing it, now they're starting to pay attention. But what's interesting is anytime something is working well, they're trying to, again, find a cheap way to do it. So you'll see like Amazon is like, we'll add a telehealth for $6 to your Prime membership. And so there's these other companies that are trying to like find a knockoff way to do it. But what we see is that it's just a strong movement. It's just simple. And you can't beat simple, transparent, high quality. It's really hard. And so they're going to have to get with it. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, that's very true. What would a membership run? Like, what is that average that they would do with this style?
Yeah. That's the thing is that when this originally, so that's why we kind of try to differentiate direct primary care versus concierge.
Okay.
Concierge, 20 plus years ago when it first came out, it was also a membership, but this was developed for like the most affluent, right? If you'd see the Kardashians making a phone call to their doctor on the show, it was to their concierge doctor, right? And that was $5,000 plus a month, right? So it was made for the elite. And so when people hear the word concierge, they will often think that's expensive, that's for them, I can't afford that, right? And so the direct primary care movement was born out of that. Like, let's make this affordable for everyday people, for working class people, also for, executives, entrepreneurs, different types of people. We partner directly with businesses that offer us as the benefit. So we care for a lot of, working professionals, teachers, nurses. We care for a lot of flight attendants, pilots, people that travel. So because of that, it transitioned towards more affordable care. And so most direct primary care memberships will range between $100 to $200. And then, our telehealth, for example, is $100. So you'll see it between $100 up to $200 for direct primary care.
It's amazing how like the medical system's like almost like the jewelry industry, right? We have the jewelry industry, I think they charge like 1,000 times the amount. And it's so funny, like you just mentioned, it's very inexpensive, but they don't want you to see it.
Right.
So it's awesome. So they can work directly with you as being the physician.
Absolutely.
And saying, hey, this is what you got. And you're not dealing with all this red tape.
Exactly. My
love
cell
it.
phone
Yeah.
number, text, email, phone, video.
Yeah.
Simple healthcare.
And you have to
That's
pay for
awesome.
like the specialized services. So in the event that I do need like an X-ray, then I would just pay the X-ray cost. This would give me my primary physician like items.
Yeah, that's a good question. So what most people don't think of is that primary care is 90% of your healthcare needs, because in the insurance-based model, if you only have 5 minutes, and doctors are fired if they spend more than 8 minutes with patients in that model. So if you have to see people in 5 minutes, you only have enough time to give them a pill, a referral, or send them to the hospital. Like those are the three options the smartest doctor has time for in 5 minutes, right? But now if you take that away, I have unlimited time to work in my full scope of training, right? So family medicine physicians learn dermatology by working with dermatologists. They learn orthopedics by working with orthopedic surgeons, et cetera, right? So now if I don't have a time crunch and I'm able to work in my full scope, do procedures in-house, et cetera, there's less referrals, right? So I don't have to refer out as often because I'm able to do everything I'm trained to do, which is 90% of healthcare. The 10% that falls outside of the primary care office, that's when if you have insurance, you can use it, but we have discounted wholesale rates on those. So that's when I was mentioning like x-rays are actually only $25. If my women want mammograms and their cash pay, we tell them to get it during breast cancer month because that's when it's $99. So I know how to do that. And then also labs, we go directly to the labs, get the wholesale rate without insurance markup. So a whole comprehensive annual lab work is $58. For a full panel, which it'll be $300 plus if you use insurance. So it's just so interesting for people. And when my members join, about 60% of my practice has insurance. And when they first join, they're used to using their insurance. So they're like, no, I'll use my insurance for my labs, or I'll use my insurance for my MRI. And I'm like, okay, that MRI is $300, but if you want to do it through insurance, no problem. And then they'll get like denied, wait months, and then they'll get an $800 bill. And they're like, wait, didn't you say it was $300? And I was like, yeah, cash. 3 months ago, you could have gotten it cash same day, you know? So they learn next time, like, no, give me those wholesale rates.
So you can do this in supplemental to your insurance. Like you don't have to cancel your insurance.
Nope.
You can do both.
No. Most people will
can do both,
customize.
though. I didn't know that.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, absolutely. Most of our members have insurance. At least we recommend to have some sort of catastrophic care plan, but there are smarter ways than a PPO HMO plan. Usually, if you are partnered with a direct primary care practice, there are what people would consider like a bronze plan, high deductible health plans paired with a HSA. There are something called health shares. So there are these other catastrophic care options that are lower cost than like the traditional PPO HMO.
Got
So
it.
you have lower cost, but increased quality.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I help our members explore that and customize it.
Yeah. And you help with that practice, or is that something like usually do on their own? Like they have to figure out how to navigate how
We
they work
help
together.
them discuss like what would be the best way to customize. So I give this analogy a lot. Like back in the day, we would say like we would look at PPO and HMO plans like an all-inclusive resort. You guys travel. Have you been to an all-inclusive resort, right?
Yes.
And so there's really great all-inclusive resorts, but then there's like terrible all-inclusive resorts where you get there and you're like, the food is terrible. Where's all the help? Like the beds are gross. And so what we have now are these PPO HMO plans, which are like a really bad all-inclusive resort. We've been given this product and said, just buy this product and it has all you need in it. But what we don't know is when you buy that product, it has less doctors, less hospitals, all this red tape, denials, you're paying more for less. And so now what we're seeing is like the smartest way to approach healthcare is actually to customize it. So you have some trips where you go to the all-inclusive resort, but you have other trips where you're like, nope, let me get my own airfare. Nope, I'm going to get my own train. Nope, let me pick my hotel. And that's really the smarter way to approach healthcare these days is let me get the best primary care. That's 90% of my healthcare. And then let me get the best catastrophic coverage. That's going to be the lowest cost with the highest coverage for what I actually need. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
We
that
don't
was
even
great.
think
I
like
never
that,
even-
man.
no-
Like,
no idea.
This is really, and I'm not just saying because you hear this is really awesome because people need to hear this, right? Because they're getting screwed. They're
Yes.
getting screwed left and right.
Yes.
And it's good to know that these other options out there, and we got to look at this a different way because health is literally wealth, as we all know for
Absolutely.
sure. So, being a business owner, right? So, what's the scariest part of opening Inspire Primary Care? Like, was there just a point where you were just like, damn, I can't believe I'm opening up my own practice? Or
That's a good question. Because when I opened my practice, most people thought I was crazy because I opened straight from residency, right?
Yep.
I was 8 weeks postpartum with my second baby. So I had just had a baby, and I had a toddler. So I had a 2-year-old and an 8-week-old.
Oh, geez.
And
You went
straight
for
from
it.
training. And now I'm opening a business. So people looked at me like, are you
what are
insane?
you doing?
Yeah.
I don't know how you did it,
But
to
at
be
the
honest with
same
you.
time, when I was trying to think of what it should be called and like praying about what should we call it, people just kept saying like, wow, that's so inspirational. What an inspiration, you know? And so
Powerful.
that kept coming and I was like, oh, Inspire. Okay.
Yeah.
We're going with Inspire. So I don't think like most people, like once God shows me something, I believe I can do it. And so that's just how I am.
I love
So I wasn't scared. I didn't know what I was doing,
Yep.
but I had, during my residency training, because I learned about this in residency, I used my residency as like an MBA by night. So I was studying business. I was reading business books. I was listening to business podcasts. I was interviewing and flying to successful practices and asking them what they did, what they learned. So I felt like I had really learned a lot in
Yeah.
those 3 years where I felt confident, like, well, I'm doing the best I can with all the information that I've accumulated.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had a strategy. I knew I wanted to open debt free. So I had like a part-time job at our local urgent care while the practice grew. And then I took away
for
urgent
you.
care shifts until the practice, grew on its own.
Yeah.
And so I did the best I could with the knowledge I had, and thank God it worked out.
What was like the
Yeah.
biggest challenge that you ran into when you're going through it? Because obviously you're learning as you go. You could prep for all of these things, but I'm sure there's hurdles that come up. You're like, wow, this is not growing as fast as I would like. Or
Yeah, I would say the patience, right? The patience around that, because if I was a physician who, everything has pros and cons. If I was a physician that was already working in the community for a decade, I would have this amount of patients that already knew me, that when I switched over, a chunk of them would join, right? But I had been gone for over a decade of training. Although I was from Vegas, I was gone for 10 years for my medical school and residency training and my post-baccalaureate training. So I was coming back as a brand new person, although it was my hometown. So it was just the starting from zero. The urgent care part-time just helped that out to not stress as much. But then once it got to that tipping point of like the practice was just busy enough, but not busy enough for me to quit, or it was just this discomfort of like, oh, when do I quit? And then it got to the point where they kind of called me and it was like, hey, I noticed you working on your practice. And so to have integrity of, I had to quit before I felt ready to quit, and go all in and just have faith that, okay, we're all in.
Yeah.
That was probably the hardest part in the early days, was like going all in.
yeah, that's tough. It's tough to make that shift.
No safety net.
Yeah, no safety net.
Yeah.
And your husband's a partner in this too, right? With helping you build this and everything?
My husband's our COO. So
Yep.
I say no safety net, but Carlos is still my safety
Yeah,
net,
yeah,
right? Because he's still our W-2 position, and although he does the operations side, in the early days, there wasn't an operations side. It was me and automations. So
Sure.
it wasn't until we started hiring our team, our second provider, expanded to our second suite, that we really had an operations side of the business and payroll side of the business. So his role has grown as our company has grown, but in the early days,
Didn't have that. Yeah.
we didn't
Yep.
we didn't need the operation side
Yeah.
yet.
That's awesome. I salute it, because it's hard to be able to
Yeah.
do that, man. But talk a little bit about, because you're a weight loss specialist too, right?
Yes.
And that's a big, especially we're in January, everybody talking about
Yes.
weight loss and running to. So what people hear about obesity in medicine and think weight only would be basically something that's a challenge for folks. But what's the perspective for you about just weight loss in general? Maybe one
I
tip.
love that question. Well, I have to say where my passion for obesity treatment and healthy weight, healthy nutrition comes from. One, I came from a mother and grandmother who really emphasized healthy lifestyles. We were always walking, doing Tai Bo, they drinking smoothies. So that was my upbringing, and they would. I hate to say this. I hope my dad's not listening, but my dad's side of the family, the women were very obese. And so I kind of grew up being, chastised. Like, you don't want to look like them. Like, And
that'll cause some problems.
So, but they tried to encourage it in a healthy way. And so then I shift to medical school, and every chronic disease we would go through, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, the number one risk factor on the next slide would be obesity. And so I kept saying, man, if everything we're studying is linked to obesity, cancer, everything, if it's all linked to obesity, why don't we just fix that? Right?
Yeah.
And so that's when I really got passionate about it. But then I had babies. And my second baby, blew me up 60 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so when I opened the practice, I was 60 pounds heavier than what's healthy for my frame.
Yeah.
And my way of training or trying to get to a healthy weight after babies was training for half marathons. So after my first baby, I trained for a half marathon.
Yes.
After my second baby, I trained for a half marathon, tried to eat healthy, intermittent fasting, plant-based, all the things, and the 60 pounds would just not come off. And I was like, what is going on? And that was around the time where GLP-1s started really becoming popular as far as people seeing results. And so I took a course. I took a certification course to become certified in it. We launched our medical weight loss program. And we started seeing these incredible before and afters, 100 pounds, but not just the weight, people's sleep apnea being reversed, high cholesterol, type 2 diabetes being reversed. I was like, okay. So I told my husband, I was like, and he had gained with me because, when you're pregnant, you both gain.
Yeah.
And so I was like, we should get on our program,
Yeah.
and he was like, I don't know, because it was early in the GLP-1 journey. And he's like, well, what about side effects? And what about this? And so I was like, no, I took the course. We're good.
Yeah.
So, I talked him into it and we both lost 60 pounds. And now that was over 3 years ago. 4 years. My baby just turned 4.
Yep.
So that was 4 years ago, and we've, been able to maintain. And so we are products of our weight loss program.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did you change up your whole diet? Because they always say to eat the diet. That's what
That's
kicks
the
everybody's
thing.
butt. Yeah.
Nutritionally, I've always had outside of pregnancy, I've always had a really good nutrition.
Good
So
for
that
you.
was what was so frustrating about it. And I think that's where the stigma, I also think that's where a lot of the community join my program and feel the connection, because there isn't this judgment like, girl, I've been there.
Yeah.
I've tried to eat healthy. I've tried to work out. And some people that's enough. And some people genetically, metabolically.
Especially when you get over age, after 40, man. After 40, start kicking your butt. Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's just not the story for everybody. Eat
Yeah.
healthy and move more isn't always going to be enough.
Yeah.
And so I think people knowing my story, they connect with that and they feel safe to actually come and join and say, man, I'm struggling too,
Yeah.
even with the healthy lifestyle. Now, those who don't have a healthy nutrition, we do wellness plans. We help them transition their nutrition healthier.
Sure.
But many people that come see me, they have tried eating healthy and they have tried exercising, and it's still
Still
not
not
coming
working.
off. And
Yeah.
they're suffering with chronic diseases because of it.
Man,
Yeah.
that's the part that's kicking everybody's butt, because you don't know what's those chronic diseases behind
Yeah, I had
behind the
horrible
curtain.
acid reflux. I was on medication when I was 60 pounds heavier. I had horrible back pain. So I was like starting to feel it. And I was like, oh, this does not
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
good. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't feel healthy on my frame,
Sure.
outside of like wanting to look,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
But
for sure. That's powerful, and it's good. Your honesty is everything too, man. And
Yeah.
you're not, and it's amazing that you and your husband did that together.
Yes.
Yeah,
we
that's
did.
amazing.
I always
Yeah.
tell the husband and wives when they join, I always tell the wives, the men almost always lose weight faster, so don't get mad about it. He lost 60 pounds in like weeks, it felt like.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it took me longer, but he'd still eat his burgers and
Yeah.
he was still dropping 10 pounds. I was like, so yeah.
I need
but-
that. Yeah, I need that. I
But we
need
both
that for
got
sure.
there
Yeah.
eventually,
Yeah.
yes.
That's awesome. I was going to ask you just about like the number one habit that's destroying health in Vegas, just in general, because we're in Vegas and you see that we got drinking, we got so many things that we have access to. But what would you say is one of the number one things you see that's destroying maybe the health side of us?
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Of course, you have silos. Like, of course, if you're on drugs,
Of
that's
course,
the
yeah,
thing. If you're
yeah.
heavy drinking, if you
Of
have
course, yeah.
unhealthy gambling. But in general, yes, I'm biased, but
Yeah.
the lack of primary care in our city
Yeah.
is truly is detrimental to the health of our city, the access of primary care, because primary care, again, is 90% of healthcare under one roof. And if you
Yeah.
don't have that, then people are left scrambling, avoiding. Most of our city, we avoid healthcare. We're like, if it's not that horrible, I'm just going to deal with it. I looked on ChatGPT. I looked on TikTok, that'll be enough. Or we're just using our urgent cares are thriving, right? Our urgent cares are thriving because people can't get in with the continuity with primary care. So they're like, if I'm sick, I just go to quick care. I just go to urgent care.
Because they're worried about what they're going to pay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or even worse, they go to the emergency room for something they should have seen
What urgent
a
care
primary
for,
care
yeah.
doctor for, right? And so it's like, what are you doing going there for blood pressure? And so that really is a huge piece. We actually are in a medical desert. Many people don't know that. Not only a desert, but a medical desert. So most cities our size, the primary care population, I should say the detriment, like how many are missing, is about 8% in most cities. But ours is 12%, so almost double what the national average is when it
I did
comes
not
to
know
the
this,
lack
yeah.
of primary care. Yeah, so when you look at the ratio of primary care physicians or providers to the population size, much higher, almost double of a detriment compared to other cities. So that's a big thing. And then in insurance-based practices, it's hard for Nevada is not competitive compared to other cities when it comes to compensation.
Yep.
So historically, and this is a transient city, most people aren't from Vegas.
Yep.
And so most of our good doctors get recruited out, they get pulled to other cities, or they just aren't tied here anyway because they're not from here, so they move out. So that's another thing I try to tell people, like,
Sure.
this is my hometown,
Yeah,
this is,
yeah,
you're catching me young,
Yeah,
and
you can
this
build.
is, we're going to build quality healthcare for the
Yeah.
city.
I love that we're doing that because you always hear about the education being bad and medical systems being bad,
yes.
right? And people like you, this is why we wanted people like you to come on to be
Yeah.
able to share that we're making an impact and it's getting better for Vegas.
It
you know what I mean?
is.
Like our future is way better over the next probably 5, 10, 20 years.
Absolutely. And now we have medical schools and residency
Yep.
programs here. When I was in training, there was none of that. I had to go away because
Yep.
there was no medical school or residency program in Las Vegas.
Yep.
So even just having those now training up people in the city
Yep.
is going to help.
Yeah, it
That's
makes
huge.
perfect sense. You know,
Yep.
for me, I am one of those people. I just go to urgent care. It's like I don't think I
I
can
hate
have
going
a
to the
primary
doctor.
care
I
person.
do, yeah.
So it's honestly, but I never realized that's probably the reason why. Like the city I grew up in, you had this hub of people that you
Yep.
can go to that you know of, that people referred you to.
Yep.
But here, you really don't have that. Like I've never really thought about it like that. It's very
Yeah.
interesting.
You both reflect the population
Yeah.
of Vegas, literally.
Yeah, because we're both from the Midwest. You know,
Yeah.
being from Chicago, he's from Detroit, and
Yep.
you had this mindset, and it's kind of messed up.
And you look for
Yeah.
people, they're not covered by your insurance or they're
Yeah.
far away, and you have
Yep.
to do all these different things. Just the hurdles they have to jump through to find somebody is very, very hard to navigate.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And that's
That's
when I
crazy.
talk about that all-inclusive island. When you get there and you're like, where's all the help? Because they don't tell you that you're paying for this benefit, but most people don't take it anymore because they don't pay. So they stop accepting it. And it's like, wait, what? Yeah.
That's unreal. I do want to talk a little bit about you being an author, right? So you've got
Yes.
books out right now also. What was important for you to create You Can Call Me Queen and King? I was reading
Yes.
about that. Can you share a little bit about that?
Oh, yeah, that was sweet.
Yeah.
That was so interesting. Yeah, I try to solve problems, right? And so
Yeah.
when I had Ava, my oldest, of course, I wanted to read her books, inspiring messages. I wanted but I was looking for something very specific that I couldn't find. I kept ordering books from Amazon, and I wanted diversity in the characters. I wanted an empowering message. A lot of the princess books were like the prince saving the girl,
Sure.
or they lacked diversity, or they just didn't have the message where I was like, I'm going to read this to her and she's going to know she can be anything.
Yep, that's
She's going to
powerful.
see herself reflected. And so I kept complaining. I kept buying these books and my husband was like, why don't you just write one? And,
awesome.
and I grew up writing poetry. And so writing a rhyming book, it just kind of came to me.
Okay.
And it was really for Ava. And so I dedicated it to her and I self-published it. And it was really just my gift to her. But then other people were like, let me see the book, And so then I shared it on my social media and people asked if they could buy it. So I started selling them, sending signed copies. And then I was a part of one of the largest hospitals in Southern California. And one of my attending physicians showed the head of the pediatric department. And she was like, we're going to buy books for the whole pediatrics department. And so I'd see these kids, they would all get to leave with my book after their
That
doctor's
is powerful.
appointment.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God. And so then I started having all these boy moms ask me, can you write a boy
Something
version?
Yep.
And at that time I was pregnant with my second baby and I had just found out it was a girl. Sorry,
You have all
Aaliyah.
girls, right?
Yes.
Okay. I
Sorry
remember talking to your
Aaliyah,
husband
but I
about
was
that.
devastated.
Yeah.
Initially, she's wonderful, but I was devastated initially, and I was like, I don't have any boys. I'm not writing a boy book. And then Carlos was like, well, just write it for me, And so I did. I wrote You Can Call Me King, and I dedicated it to
That's
him.
awesome.
And
Yeah.
I made a little cartoon character version of him on the cover. But
That's powerful.
they just kind of came along out of that need. But initially, it was about Ava and trying to just find a book that could just motivate her, that I could read to her over and over, and that would just inspire her.
Yep.
Yeah, great story.
What would you say? What would that message be to wish every girl of color
Yeah.
that they could hear of that, because you don't hear a lot of that, right? Like we
Yeah.
also have C.J. Watson on that's written multiple books too, just about the impact of boys and being able to see, who they can live up to.
Yeah.
But what would you say, just for somebody listening?
The thing I would write in the cover when I would sign it is that you can do and be anything. And that's really what it was about. Like,
Sure.
whatever you put your mind to. When you asked me, like, well, when you opened your practice, like, were you scared? It's like, well, I'd already made up my mind.
Yeah.
And I believed that I could do and be anything. And so it really starts in the mind. I feel like so many of us don't accomplish what we're called to accomplish because we don't start with believing we can do it.
Yeah.
Of course, there's so many other things we have to do after
Sure.
that, but that's the first thing that really cripples a lot of people. Is
Yeah.
like just not even believing it's possible for them.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to get it in her head that she could do and be anything early before the world told her different.
Yep. I love that. That's what we talk to our kids about all the time,
Yeah.
man. Honestly, that foundation. I think it's up until 3 years old, right? Just setting that
Yeah,
right
absolutely.
foundation of no, that's BS. Like this is what
Yeah.
you could do and this is what you could strive for. So that's powerful.
Yeah. I
gotta
said
have
if
my
we were
voice
going to
checked.
have one thing is confident children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And happy.
Yes,
Yeah, and
yes.
happy. Family, faith, and just balance. That's a big thing for me, for
Yes.
sure, just with this busy lifestyle that we're dealing with. Being a doctor, being an entrepreneur, wife, mom, you guys have a nonprofit. How do you protect your energy?
That's such a good question. I've done a lot of
And I wanted to
interviews.
ask your
haven't been
husband this
asked
too.
that
Yeah, 'cause your
before.
husband's sharp. Yeah.
Yeah, we would have different answers
Yeah.
because we operate very differently. Carlos is naturally much more chill. He sits back and he says no when he's overwhelmed. I am the go, right? I will overbook. I will have a checklist every day that is to the floor. And I had to really untrain myself in that
Yeah.
way. I had to learn how to relax, how to pause, how to say no, how to just rest. Resting is not my
Yeah.
thing. Like going is my thing.
Yep.
And Carlos is the opposite. He's like, please don't task me like that.
Yeah.
Like, like I will get to it in
Yeah.
and I'm looking at him like, when?
Y'all sound like y'all at our house. It sound like y'all at our house. That's real.
And I
That's
think
real.
I needed that. God knew
Yeah.
I needed that balance. If
Yeah.
I had another me, we would just be driving each other crazy. We'd both
Yeah.
be like Energizer Bunny.
Yeah.
So I have learned, I've been intentional about learning how to pause, how to pace,
Love that.
how to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
but
gotta
I had to
learn
learn.
that. I gotta learn that. Yeah, I gotta
Yes.
learn that so bad. Just about just business and life advice. Just transition a little bit. What advice would you give somebody that maybe they're thinking about, being a physician like yourself, or just being a business owner in general? What would you share with them, as a listener? Maybe a nugget that maybe could help them. Maybe not even being scared too.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
What would you share?
Yeah, definitely two different TED Talks on the
100%.
being a doctor and being an entrepreneur,
yeah.
right? But similar things that overlap. So when it comes to being a doctor, it's really like don't quit, because if I knew it was going to be as hard as it was, and everyone's different. My journey was very difficult. I am very open about I wasn't a great standardized test taker, and that is a huge part of becoming a doctor.
Yeah.
It's just one standardized test after another. And so my journey was very hard because that was my number one struggle. I could connect with people. I could walk into a room. They'd tell me their whole life story within seconds. I would listen. I loved people. But you put a question, like sit me in a cold room for 4 hours and I have to check A, B, C, or D. I'm like, my brain doesn't like that.
You ever check E
Yeah,
and F?
I'm like, well, it could be A, it could be B. But if you really think about it, like I hate my body, soul, it just didn't work that way, right? I was relational. So for people who are like me in that way, I would just say, don't quit. Like whatever you have to do when it comes to like, I had to get tutors. I had to stay after. I would be in all of my professors' after hours being like, walk me through this organic chemistry thing. I just was there. And regardless if they wanted me there or not, I was there because
awesome.
my mind was like, I just need to get this MD, So for doctors, I'd be like, don't quit, reach out to mentors, connect with people that, maybe your struggle isn't test taking. Maybe you lost a parent or something during your training. Everyone has a different struggle, but connect with others and find support, and don't shy away from therapy. Right. And so, lots of different ways to skin that cat, but don't quit. And then for entrepreneurs, it's very interesting. I have found it to be very helpful to surround myself by people who have who are further in their journey than me, right? I would surround myself by women who were successful in business, by women of color who were killing it in marketing, killing it in sales, killing it on social media, just these different areas that I
Building their brand,
wasn't trained to do, right? I was trained to be in the library with books for 14 years. Like that's what I was trained to do. So I get out and I'm like, oh, I have to market, I have to be on camera, I have to do podcasts, I have to speak to stage, you know, I have to sell. And that feels weird at first initially. Although I don't sell now. Now I understand I just solve problems, you know, to those I'm called to serve. But they were just new skill sets. And so surrounding myself with people who were already amazing in that, not trying to figure it out or reinvent the wheel, that's the number one thing. I'm a sponge. And that's the thing. I knew how to learn. I'm a professional learner, right?
That's awesome.
And so it's like a lot of doctors will be like, I don't want to do social media. I'm not a this, I'm not a that. And I'm like, you're a learner.
You have to adapt. Yeah,
That's all you have to
Great
do
point,
is get into a room and be a sponge, learn, observe.
Yeah. And there's too much information at our fingertips.
Yeah.
I mean, YouTube, just everything is out there.
Absolutely.
It's free. That
I
you
tell
can learn.
people I went to YouTube University.
That's
like
100%. I'm
those
with
3
you.
years of
Yep.
residency. I
I'm
was
with
like,
you. Yeah.
I mean, that's how I learned how to write books.
Yeah.
I was like, how do
That's
people write
awesome.
these children's books? Oh, there's a YouTube video for that.
It's no excuses I got from you. Yeah. That's
No.
awesome. Transition a little bit about food. We love the Vegas food here. I'm always asking everybody about what's your favorite. We met at a restaurant too, by the way.
Yes.
But what's your favorite restaurant in Vegas, especially being a local? Yeah.
I would say in general, I love sushi. Like
Okay.
that's what me and my husband love to do.
Okay.
We were heartbroken because one of our favorite sushi spots just like randomly closed. That's what Vegas is good for. Is you'll just go somewhere that you
Yes.
think is
Done.
like popular, always packed, and then they're just closed.
It never makes sense, right?
One of the hardest
Yeah.
businesses.
Yes,
It's one of the hardest businesses.
I know.
Yep.
So a lot of our favorite sushi restaurants are now closed, and so I feel like we're like sushi orphans. We're like going restaurant to restaurant trying to find our new favorite sushi spot.
Yeah.
But that's really what we love,
Okay.
and we love seafood.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would you give us for a sushi gym that you guys go to maybe on a regular now?
Right now, we regularly go to Chinatown. It's called Sushi Nico.
Okay.
Yeah, so we go there a lot.
Sushi Nico's good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's our most common one because it's
Okay.
just kind of central in
Yep.
Vegas, easy to hop to.
Yep.
Yeah,
Awesome.
But
Awesome.
I'm
That's good.
always up for recommendations.
We can give you Kase. We just
We
had
haven't
James
been
Trader
there.
on. Kase's great.
Yeah,
Okay.
omakase experience.
It's an
really
omakase
good.
experience, but it's doesn't kill your pockets.
Okay.
And then we also went together
Yep.
at Kame.
Comment.
Which
I
is
haven't been to either of those, so I gotta write
Kame's
those down.
amazing.
Kame's
Kame's
unbelievable,
amazing.
yeah. Okay.
Kame's amazing. Kase's
I like
amazing
the word
too.
amazing
Yes.
when I'm trying
Yeah.
to get some sushi.
Yeah,
so,
it's
okay.
amazing. Yep.
Okay.
Shout out to them and their team. They're great. Anything that we forgot that you want to leave us out on, man, that maybe that you're trying to accomplish in 2026? Yeah.
Wow, you guys have touched on a lot, and you've
Okay, good.
asked some really great questions.
Thank
For
you.
me, our business, Inspire Primary Care, we really started off being for individuals, busy professionals,
Mm-hmm.
individuals looking for better healthcare, higher quality care, a relationship with their doctor. It's interesting because we naturally started attracting lots of business owners, right?
Yeah.
And because a lot of them didn't have traditional insurance plans.
Sure.
And then they started saying, well, can I offer this as the healthcare benefit to my team of 5, to my executive assistant? What about, well, now my their business has grown, my team of 20, right? And so over the last 2 years, the corporate side of our business has really grown. And now we're blessed to serve and partner with many of the small and medium-sized businesses throughout the Valley. And so that's a
great.
part that I feel like a lot of people don't know as much about because
Yeah.
through our socials, we're able to really connect to that one-on-one. But if there are business owners that are listening, we would love to see if we're a good fit as a corporate partner because we've really been able to lower the cost of healthcare for businesses while increasing the quality of care. And usually on P&Ls, healthcare, if they are offering
huge.
benefits, are the second highest after payroll on the P&L.
Yeah.
And most Las Vegas businesses just aren't offering healthcare at all because they're just like, I just can't afford it. And so many businesses don't offer that they're like, well, we won't either. And so there's a better way, and we're excited to be a part of that solution too.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, because our overhead is no punk on the
Yeah.
healthcare side, so that's great that you guys offered. I didn't even
Yes.
think of that. I was thinking individual, but
Yeah.
corporate side makes a lot of sense. So
It's been amazing.
well, definitely check them out and Inspire. What's the social handles people can check out?
Oh
for you?
yeah. So we're at Inspire Primary Care. No I in front of Inspire.
Okay.
And then my page is Dr. Jade MD.
Pay attention to what she's doing, and you're very funny, by the way, man. You guys got a great way of being able to teach and mess around, man.
thank
so it's
you.
great, man. So applaud what you guys are doing, and definitely check out Inspire. Check us out at thevegascircle.com and subscribe with us. Appreciate your time, man. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thanks for having
That's
me.
great. Yeah,
I learned
that
a
was
lot.
awesome.